I, in fact, like that Jared is part of the new changing of baseball because we were talking before the show. Ellie De La Cruz has made it so Brian McCann no longer wants to watch baseball. Last night, they checked his bat in the second inning, and then the fifth inning, he hits a 450-foot home run. And I am now old enough that the manager of the Nationals, who will never have a player as good as Ellie De La Cruz, is mad at Ellie for his antics. You are part of the new generation of people covering baseball scientifically, well through the analytics, smarter about baseball than most sports have. And so I thank you for being on with us. And tell me about what you see happening in your sport, because it seems, as I see players celebrating in the dugout in ways I've never seen before, ethnic. It feels like the World Baseball Classic, what's happened, and it feels like it's happened in 6 months.
Right. Yeah. No, Bryce Harper died for this. Like, that's essentially what we're talking about here. When Bryce Harper first came into the league and he had all that energy and excitement, and Cole Hamels threw at him and then admitted that he threw at him just because he plays with a certain energy. That's kind of was like the starting point. And now we're at a phase in this game where some of that older guard is being phased out. I think we saw Madison Bumgarner may have thrown his last pitch in the big leagues this season. So it's kind of like that type of player where it got passed down from generation to generation, where they maybe didn't even feel that way coming into the game, but it was just beaten into their brains as younger players. Like, hey, we don't do that around here. You mentioned the Brian McCann thing, the infamous battle with Jose Fernandez, RIP. Like, he was a guy that came into the league and he was what you're describing. I'm going to be me. I'm going to play the way that I want to play. I am who I am, but some players had an issue with that. And now we're kind of getting to the point where maybe so much players don't have an issue, but then Davey Martinez over there with the manager of the Nats, he's saying, yeah, good player, but he's been in the big leagues for 2 weeks, and I didn't love the antics.
I'm not totally sure here, but I think I just detected a human emotion off of David Samson. And I think it may have been Jose Fernandez being so colorful and dying that not only does it hurt David Samson, but I'm guessing did the Marlins allow Jose Fernandez to be maximum Jose Fernandez?
No, I do miss him, but what actually happened is he spat as he was rounding the bases, and Brian McCann had a real problem with that. And we spoke to Jose about it exactly after the game, that we tried to let Jose be Jose, but we fought with ourselves over it because it was too much. And it was impacting actually relationships in the clubhouse, and it was impacting his ability to be the best he could be on the field. So the issue with McCann happened, it was on the home run. You may remember when he spat. Is that the past tense of to spit? Mm-hmm. Spat. And we said, please do not ever do that again. But I do miss him. But I was not emotional about his death at that moment.
I'm a big Jose Fernandez guy. I mean, that was his first big league home run. Big Jose Fernandez guy. Brian McCann was one of those older guard. Like, he gets in these spats with more than just Jose Fernandez. But yeah, he was one of my favorite pitchers of all time.
Jared, I'm sorry. Mike, what just happened there? Hold on, Jared. My apologies for interrupting
I miss him
you.
too. I miss him too.
No,
everything about that was weird. How you presented it. Jose Fernandez being colorful and dying. Everything about that was weird. And it's two guys, given today's show, I guess you're trying to feel out your feelings, and it's just weird. It's not saying a lot for men right now.
Men.
I felt like you were crushed while we were talking. He mentioned Jose Fernandez, and I saw you slump in your seat.
Welcome, Jared. It's always like this.
It's always like this.
Jared.
Jared, are you made insane when Stephen A. Smith is on ESPN yelling and screaming about Anaheim is irrelevant? Anaheim the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim.
They play in Anaheim.
They'll never matter, and you're watching a criminal underappreciation in your sport of a superstar who is a better athlete than anywhere in sports. That Shohei Ohtani is doing something that it defies human description, and he's not being paid enough attention to because they can't win.
I had to sit on the fence on this one, which I hate doing. I don't like to be like, well, I can see it from this side and I can also see it from that side. But that's essentially where I landed on it was, hey, I get why people are upset that Stephen A. Smith is talking about the Angels. And like nothing that he said was incorrect, but it wasn't well received within baseball circles because they know that Stephen A. Smith doesn't actually care about baseball. I think the last time that we heard Stephen A. have a baseball take that went viral was when he said that Shohei Ohtani can't be the face of baseball because he doesn't speak English. And that was I think that's right when I landed in Denver for the All-Star game in 2021. So it's right around this time of the year Stephen A. will chime in. So it's like, yeah, what you said wasn't wrong. People don't actually care about the Angels. They care about Mike Trout. They care about Shohei. And then I even got accused of gatekeeping. They're like, oh, you're gatekeeping who can and can't talk about baseball. I'm not saying Stephen A. can't. And to sitting on the fence part, baseball needs that exposure. Like, you know, if you're talking about baseball on a national stage, that's great. That's always a good thing for the sport. I was more just explaining, you know, baseball fans, they want baseball opinions from people that actually know baseball. And I don't think that Stephen A. fits in that category. So that's why people were so resistant to hearing it.
But it's to the benefit of our sport if people would not receive Stephen A. Smith that way. His platform is such that inside league offices, you want Stephen A. Smith, however bad the take is, however
That's
much
crazy to me. It honestly is nuts to me that baseball is in a position where they have to beg a national show to talk about it.
How many times we begged John Skipper to do something better with our sport through ESPN? Begged, and he would have none of it. So the fact that Stephen A. Smith would take a minute, however misguided it may be, the only hope is that eventually he will be able to have better takes. But as we talked about, maybe there's no such thing as better takes anymore.
Our CEO is responsible for killing baseball because it didn't used to be that nationally where you're begging. It wasn't even 15 years ago where you got to beg to be on. I mean, why would baseball care whether they're on First Take or not 15 years ago?
Absolutely. We cared about whether we be on the Deuce or on ESPN.
Dan, it matters.
It really does.
It matters that the conversation is being had, regardless of whether it's being had
what
well
I'm
or not.
saying is baseball was all over the network then. I'm saying it was
just
all
the game, so Dan, and people would they weren't getting new fans. If you look at the daytime approach of ESPN from a content standpoint, really only 3 sports mattered: pro football, college football, and the NBA. And they employed a lot of talents that were pretty ill-qualified to discuss anything else.
Dan, think about highly questionable. The only time we showed baseball highlights was to show the ball hitting on Canseco's head.
That is correct, but I'm responsible for it. But that show was for 8 years. I'm talking about before that. I'm talking about 15 years ago, 20 years ago. Mike, I saw in 1991 American Gladiators got a better rating than the NFL. Baseball was dominant back then.
Yeah, but we don't have to. Thankfully, it's all been fixed with pitch clocks and the
has
removal
been.
infield shift.
They did fix
and
it.
Ellie De La Cruz has fixed it. So, for as bad a job as Ron Manfred has done, his legacy might actually be, he kind of fixed it.
Jared, did Rob Manfred fix baseball?
For as hated as he's been for some decisions that he's made, you have to give him credit. I mean, people have been talking about baseball more this year for what they've done in terms of changing the game and all the rules. Like, I love it because I have a Red Sox podcast, but then I also have the National MLB podcast that I do. Mm-hmm. So I have to stay up every single night to watch these West Coast games. And I get to go to bed earlier because the games get over earlier. So I love it personally. But I think, I don't know how many new fans they're converting. I think when you talk about the rule changes, I don't know that that's bringing in newer fans, but Shohei Ohtani himself, that was one of the things that I tweeted the other day was when he hit the home run in over the weekend, and it was 493 feet or whatever it was. That's one of the first times that I think I saw a highlight of a baseball player make it outside the baseball circle so that people that don't care or pay attention to baseball at all are like, this guy's the real deal. I keep hearing the name, but this might have been the first time that they're actually seeing him do what he does. And then that builds the intrigue. So it's not so much the rules. I think the rules are nice for existing baseball fans, but it is the Ellie De La Cruzes and the Shohei Otanis of the world that are gonna get fans' attentions and say, I keep hearing about these guys, but this dude just hit for the cycle. I'm gonna check that out. He has blazing speed. He can hit the ball 118 miles an hour. That's the stuff that's gonna draw in new fans.
So baseball got better because you get to go to sleep earlier?
Yes, correct. For me, yes. Sleep is it's hard to come by.
He is headed to Seattle for the All-Star game. He hosts the Name Redacted podcast and Baseball is Dead podcast for DraftKings. And again, he's with us on behalf of DirecTV.
I'm on an island here. Do you see Moreno trading Ohtani?
I think it's the right move. I don't think they pull the trigger on it. I would be very surprised if they did, but it is the right thing to do. And I think that the Mike Trout injury obviously opens up the door for that, depending on how the Angels are playing over the next month, if they completely go into the tank. But even right now, like, they've fallen out of a playoff spot. They've got multiple teams in front of them before they can even get that last wild card spot. I know that it would be no baseball executive has ever been in that position to have to trade a player like this ever in the history of the sport. Like, you can go back to Babe Ruth, but it's like Babe Ruth didn't pitch and hit at the same time. There is no comparison for what Shohei Ohtani is and what he means to not just the Angels, but the sport of baseball. I would still do it. I just don't think that it's a lose-lose, because you're either waving the white flag saying our season's over, or you're trading the maybe the most influential player to ever live, or you're looking at it where 5 years, 6 years down the line, you're still going to be criticized for the return that you get on that player, because wherever Ohtani signs, and it's not going to be the Angels, he's going to go on to have this Hall of Fame career, and he'll go into the Hall of Fame wearing the hat of the team that he goes to next. And you'll be looking at this package that you got for a 3-month rental, and that's going to be scrutinized, and that's going to define your career as a baseball executive. And it's never going to become some sort of package or return that was worth giving up that.
I have no idea what you're referring to.
Jared, thank you for being on with us. Giancarlo Stanton is not this. He is not this.
No.
Miguel Cabrera
Miguel
is
Cabrera
not
was.
this either.
Well,
no, not
on
this.
one side of the
not this.
deal.
Not
Yeah,
this.
Dontrell Willis, good return.